Some of you know that I occasionally like to talk to friends. My next guest is a very close friend who I've worked with and who I have known for years. He takes a long time to get to the point, but he's one of those people who reveals so much information if you take time to listen. I guarantee you, towards the end of this program, he gets to some key topics that most people are not willing to talk about. So stay tuned and listen to Les Mower. Les, it's so good to see you and to have a chance to have a conversation with you. What I want people who are listening to this program and viewing it to know is that Les and I met virtually. We are talking to a man who is truly a webmaster, a technical guru, someone who I would describe as a Renaissance man, and we'll find out more about him as we begin the conversation. So welcome, Les. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. We talk so much, but we very rarely see each other.
Right, we're talking on Zoom, which is really fun and very versatile for us. So let me ask you this, because when I say you're a Renaissance man, I'm not exaggerating. You do many things, including performing. You're in a wonderful group of men who sing brilliantly. What's it like to be a Renaissance man, and what does that mean for you in the 21st century?
That's a very kind interpretation of who I am. My wife says I'm just scattered.
But the truth is, yeah.
She's a mental health therapist, and she is convinced that I should be on ADD medicine.
You know, they say that for some people, ADD is a strength. So this is maybe the case with you. So you do have varied interests, but you've got this new podcast called Les Talks to Himself. What do you mean? Do you really talk to yourself?
Well, not so much out loud, but now I may have to. I find myself having thoughts, and sometimes they come in the middle of the night. And for some reason, my friends don't want to receive a phone call about some spurious thought of mine at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I may have to start talking to myself.
Okay.
I do sit up when I have one of them and try to think it through. I was yesterday morning, I woke up. It was a Sunday morning, and I was thinking to myself, I'm a very fortunate man, and we missed any damage from the storm, and I have friends that were devastated by it. I was laying there drinking coffee, watching one of my favorite TV shows about antique cars, and I was fully that fortunate man. Every bit of my experience was that. And then I looked at my calendar on my phone, and it said, your massage begins in 2 minutes. Well, that would be really fortunate again if the massage was taking place where I was, but it was half an hour away. And I instantly went, in all of my experience, from being a fortunate man to being a doofus. I thought like a doofus, I felt like a doofus, I did things that I really could have left undone until after the massage. I acted like a doofus, and I really felt like one. And I ran down, I jumped in the car, and as I was pulling out of my driveway, my wife came walking down the street. She'd gone out for a morning walk with a friend, and I changed personalities again. I became a slightly henpecked husband. I knew that if I turned to the left and didn't tell her what I was doing, I was going to have to explain it later on. And in that moment, I had all of the sensations of being henpecked. I'm really not, but in that moment, I was. So I told her, and then I turned around and I went on and I raced on towards my massage. And along the way, I became a bit of a doofus again, in that I exceeded the speed limit in an area where I knew there was likely to be police patrols. Then I became a victim. And I mean, I really was. I thought to myself about how, they're supposed to call me and text me, reminding me of this appointment, and my phone's supposed to give me a warning when something in my calendar's coming up. It wasn't my fault. I mean, I was a victim. And then I went into a role that I enjoy a lot. I became an explorer because I'm interested. I know I'm not really a victim, even though at that moment I felt like a victim. I knew I'm not, and I was wondering, how can I bring myself to this when in fact, the reason my phone didn't warn me is because I had the speaker shut off and I didn't have my earbud in. I was focused on my antique car show. I got to the massage and apologized for being late. I don't know what I would call myself in that moment. But as I got undressed to lay on the massage table, I laid down and I thought, all right, now calm down. You're Russian. There's absolutely no point in being here for a massage and being this worked up. And I became a meditator. I've done a lot of meditation in my life, and I know all the techniques, and I started to employ them. And I realized that I was spending more of my mental energy on appearing to know how to meditate and calm myself than actually doing it. So I became a fraud and felt like a fraud. My wife, as I said, is a mental health therapist, and early in her career, she had the experience or had the occasion to treat a person that truly was a multiple personality. Sometimes this woman would come in as a 6-year-old little girl. Sometimes she would come in as a 20-something street tough male, by the way. And each occasion, they really had all of the behaviors and attitudes of the different personalities. One was an artist and would bring in her paintings. One wrote beautiful poetry, and her handwriting would be different than the other personalities. And as I was laying there getting my massage, my explorer mode was running through this about, is there really any difference between me and this person that she treated other than degree? I'm all of those people, and when I am each of those different personalities I described, my behavior follows my belief of who I am. And in the end, I think I came to the idea that all of them are real. It's all the truth, but none of them are mandate. I can choose to be any one of them. And I don't have to keep acting like a doofus when I'm acting like a doofus. I don't have to keep acting like a selfish. Well, we both know the word that follows that. I just have to remember that I can be all of them, and probably that there's a benefit to fully embracing whichever personality I'm choosing to be at that moment.
Well, let's back up for those people listening to you and are in awe, because what you described was a particular level of consciousness that many people don't ever reach. Instead of being in a completely reactive state, you were able to observe your expression of being in the moment in each case, because from my modest spiritual training, you were able to be present in each one. I suspect that many people have the same levels of switching that you just described, but they don't notice it because they are still watching the antique car show, or they're looking at the groceries dropped on the floor. You were able to observe yourself consciously in each moment. So in that, I would say, do you recognize what I'm asking you, which is, have you practiced being present?
You know, again, as I was laying there exploring these thoughts, that was my question too. Am I really being these personalities? Am I really having these experiences, or am I sitting back just observing them? And I don't know the answer to that. I was participating in a virtual singers symposium yesterday. And it's funny that came up. There were some amazing icons in the music world there talking about the experience of singing. And one of them said, my career took a sharp upturn when one of my teachers said, tell me about that performance that you just gave. And it was in their practice session. And he said, I was quite critical of myself. And he said, you know, I'm here and I'm listening to you, and you're listening to you. Who's doing the singing?
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher's point was, stop watching yourself and start being yourself. And so that's where I am, is while I'm being all of these purple people, can I be that more fully without completely losing myself? Because I think I probably fall into the perpetual doofus if I do that.
Well, let me ask you another question, since you took us on this journey with you. How would you describe yourself in your interactions with other people? How would you describe yourself with your day-to-day? Now, obviously, you described your relationship with your wife, that you gently moved into a henpecked state for a short time. But how would you describe yourself? Would you say that you are, I don't want to label it, you tell me, how are you with other people? I know how you are with me, and I'll share that after you answer.
Well, first, let me correct something. I'm really nothing like a henpecked husband.
Right.
My wife is incredibly tolerant, or she probably wouldn't still be my wife. But funny, one time I've been married 3 times, and one time I referred to my last wife, and she said, understand something, honey. That was your past wife. I'm your last wife. I don't know. I enjoy people. Most of the time. I mean, there's obviously people I don't enjoy, and I do what I can to get away from them as much as I can. I'm becoming more and more conscious of the fact that I'm getting old. If I can't enjoy my time and enjoy the people I'm around, change it. Do something. Either I need to change or I need to change the people I'm around. I think, you called me a performer, and I think I'm often a performer when I'm with people. And I become what they would like me to be in that moment. Sometimes I'm the comedian, sometimes I'm the singer. With you, I always try to be the witty person.
I don't think you have to try very hard. I can pull up many things that you've said that have been very entertaining, but you just seem to naturally engage. You're also a great listener. Obviously, I'm interviewing you because I think you have some extraordinary ways about you. I meet lots of people, in my profession. I've interviewed lots of people. This is not a typical conversation that I would normally have. So I still hear this thing that's very unique, which is you engage in self-observation and self-critique, and you seem to catch yourself. When do you lose yourself? When do you, obviously watching the antique car show, but when does less disappear from less? Sometimes when you're driving down the road, you suddenly realize that you've gone 2 or 3 miles and you wonder how you got from A to B. I don't know if that happens to you sometimes. Or you're walking somewhere and you're in a dream state and you suddenly are at your destination. Do you have those experiences?
Sure. Sometimes I do that when I'm singing, and I think I sing better when I do that. I do that a lot when I love to listen to audiobooks. I think my mother must have read stories to me, and it brings me back to a place where I'm just really comfortable when somebody's reading to me, and fortunately, Audible makes that possible. So I can disappear into one of those stories. In fact, I can disappear into a story that I've already listened to before and find things. I disappear then. When, in fact, I usually go to sleep with an earbud in, listening to a story, so that my mind doesn't run while I'm trying to go to sleep.
You are someone I would describe with a constant chuckle. Now, that doesn't mean that you're silly or giddy, but that you have a joyous stream running always, all the time. And even if things are going wrong, there's a level of humor that you're finding in the situation. Some people who study Buddhism talk about the value of that kind of chuckle or laugh or inner laugh in Buddhism. So this is a very personal question. If we have to edit this out, I will. But is there something in the fact that you've experienced so many challenges that might have brought you near death that have created this kind of amusement or joyfulness that you bring to life?
Well, I was a very easily angered person until my late 30s. I would go from pleasant to thermonuclear pretty quickly. But part of it was that I grew up just knowing that I was going to die before I was 40. I was absolutely sure of it. There was never any question. There was never any reason for it. It wasn't that my family was particularly short-lived, but I just had that sense that I was going to. And in my mid-30s, I had cancer. And it was at a time when it was pretty close to a certain death situation. But I survived. And it was funny. I had made no financial plans for living a long life. I mean, I lived like I was going to die before I was 40. So I did a real change in the way I saw life at that point. I also, at that point, did my first 10-day silent meditation. And that made a big change too. I still do them on occasion. My wife is quite the meditator and meditation teacher. I'm not so much. I've modified the technique to fit my lifestyle. But yeah, I think that made me stop and say, all right, if I'm going to be here longer, how do I want that to be? And I want to enjoy it. So I do. I find humor in a lot of things that other people might not.
Yeah, I would say that you have a special talent for that. So you're not frightened a lot. You seem to approach even health challenges without being super scared.
Yeah, I recently had another round of cancer, totally unrelated to the first. I don't know, 30 years or so between the two. But and I wasn't afraid at all. I mean, I really expected to survive it, and that was part of it. But, you know, I don't know what's so frightening about death. We're all going to do it, or at least so they tell me. I'm not quite convinced I'm going to go. But, well, you know, they say the good die young. That means I really should last a long time. But I'm as interested in what that is going to be like as I am concerned about it. Part of me, you know, I look at nature, and nature wastes nothing. It changes it into something else. Nothing is ever destroyed. And I can't imagine that personality and experience just disappears. I got to think that it mutates into something else. So, you know, everybody says I want to die peacefully in my sleep. I don't. I want to be wide awake, because I don't want to wait another 70 plus years to see what it's like.
It's also very satisfying to me that you talk about it so openly. It's not a subject that many people ever want to talk about. I mean, a few scholars will talk about it, but it's an uncomfortable topic for people to address. So I'm grateful that in this. But let's get back to the podcast, because we're taking a deep look at Les Mower, and we're listening to your inner thoughts. What kinds of things are you going to want to do on your podcast?
I don't know. It's just a place that, I mean, for sure, I'll get to talk to interesting people like this.
Mm.
I have always found you interesting through, you realize it's been 20 years that we've been talking to each other?
Oh my goodness. That's true.
No, and we've always, we never get accomplished everything we wanted to get accomplished, but we talk about a lot of things that we never intended to when we talk. I'm fortunate to travel a lot, and I think I might use this in my travels because I've met a lot of very interesting people in those travels and never did anything with it besides enjoy it in the moment. And around the world, not everybody thinks like we think in America.
Mm.
So that might be something I'll do with it. I've got a lot of really interesting friends, and I'd like to see if I can entice them to speak with me in this mode. The thing is I really don't do well talking to myself. I like to bounce my thoughts off of other people. I guess that makes me an extrovert. I think that's the difference between an extrovert and an introvert is an extrovert needs that sounding board and an introvert needs to closet themselves, I believe is the way it's described.
Well, all of these psychoanalytical tools are interesting, but I would say you have a unique set of characteristics that I wouldn't label one or the other. I find you deeply reflective and deeply extroverted. So you're both, in my view. You cover much territory.
So we're right back to scattered.
Well, talk a little bit about the singing, a little bit more about the singing. Can you describe what kind of group do you sing with and who are these guys?
I sing a cappella. Right now I'm singing with 2 barbershop groups, and even barbershop has evolved. Everybody knows, down by the old mill stream and the traditional barbershop songs, but barbershop is a real close 4-part harmony, and we're exploring other types of music that we can incorporate that in. One of the choruses I sing with now is working on the Eagles' 7 Bridges Road, just because of its great harmonies. It's that resonance that comes from multiple voices in one common production that entices me.
Well, that's a good description of how I feel about you. And people know I interview my friends as well. I would call you that. And I would say that I get an experience of resonance when I'm talking with you and working with you. And every single time, including this conversation, there's always something new with you, always something new to explore, always something new to discover. So I look forward to more conversations with you. Is there anything you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, I'm just glad I got to have that thought with somebody besides myself.
Well, we're talking with Les Mower. Les talks to himself, and I look forward to your podcast, Les. Thank you so much.